All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the CD and Vinyl Guys. I'm here with my special guest, Chris Propfe of Musically Obsessed. Say hi, Chris.
How's it going, guys? Good to see you, Brennan. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I think I'm like, when was the last time we did this? And you're like, it was like 6 weeks ago. It does not seem like 6 weeks ago. I guess time just flies by. So
it sure does, but it's good to be back. I'm glad to be doing this here. And if you guys are watching this for the first time, definitely check in the description below. I'm going to put some of our other links to our other videos in there, as well as a link to Chris's site, and definitely do check him out. And also don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to both my channel, check out Chris's, and subscribe to his as well. But today we're here to talk about beyond the big four. Right? So we all know the big four. We know Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, right? But we want to go beyond that. And the idea is, who would be the next four in it? And this being 2021, and with the big four kicking off in 1981, this is actually the 40th anniversary of the big four. So Metallica started in 81, Slayer did, Anthrax did. Now, of course, Megadeth actually started in 83, but remember, Dave Mustaine comes from Metallica, so he actually starts in 81 as well. That's why we're saying that this is the 40th anniversary of the Big Four. And so Chris and I wanted to do this video here and talk about, wide variety of thrash bands, kind of narrow this down to what we think might be the next Big Four. And I'm just going to open this up here, Chris. I've got three of these. I've got a number of bands here, but I've got three of these that I think have to be in the top. And then I'm kind of open on what comes next after that. And for me, Testament, Exodus, and Overkill are at the top. Now, we can debate why that is or whatnot, but then there's just a whole bunch of other ones. And I'm curious for you, who are some of the bands that you think, are at the top of that? It would be the number 5, 6, 7 kind of thing.
Right. Well, like you, I picked, I had to go with Testament, Overkill, and Exodus.
Okay, yeah.
But you're right. And then after that, there's a whole bunch of other bands. Like I almost threw Metal Church in there.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about throwing Forbidden in there. I've got Forbidden back here. But I'm going with Death Angel.
Okay. Another Bay Area band.
Yeah, huge Death Angel fan. Now, I was just looking up. I was gathering my stuff for all this. And Death Angel's first band or album was the Ultraviolence.
Right.
This came out in 87. Now, I was looking up information about these guys. They were all under 20 years old when this album came out. The drummer was only 14 years old when this album came out.
Really?
And I always remember Death Angel from Frolic Through the Park. This is my favorite Death Angel record. And if you're into Death Angel, you're going to remember them because of the song Bored. I just wanted to show the vinyl of this because this is, like I said, my favorite Death Angel album. I also have it on CD, and like you showed too. I mean, Act 3 was when they started to get a little bit more progressive.
Right. This is the album that I got into them on. I kind of went backwards after hearing that one. So I always associate them a little later in the scene. And when I was, reading up on them today and stuff to find out that these guys actually started in 1982. So,
wow. Okay.
Around almost as long as the rest of the Big Four have been, even though they didn't kind of come into it until a little bit later. Right. But yeah, a lot of people, when talking about the Bay Area scene and the Big Four, you always hear Death Angel.
Yeah. And what's another cool thing is on Frolic Through the Park, they do a cover of Kiss's Cold Gin.
Oh, nice.
And it's a really good cover. So, it's nice because they're paying, homage to the earlier bands too. So
right.
I think just a really cool band. They had a unique sound. And I think what it was is they were younger. So they were coming at it with just this energy that maybe some of these other bands, I mean, the other bands were young, but they were just a little bit older than them. So they kind of brought that youthfulness to it. And they're still going. I mean, their latest albums are still really good.
Yeah, with a lot of these bands that we're talking about here, the bands are still going. I mean, all of the Big Four are still going. Yep. Testament, yep. Overkill, even Exodus. These bands are all still going. You mentioned Metal Church, and I certainly, that's one of the ones that's like, are they, the fourth one in that, or is it someone else? But their early stuff with David Wayne is amazing. And, he was part of the group from 81 when they actually started in 1980, but he joins in 81. Yeah. but I came into them with Mike Howe. So I'm a little partial to that era of the band from 88 on when he came in.
Right.
But Kurt Vanderhoof, the guitar player, is amazing. I mean,
well, I was telling you before we started this, I saw Metal Church live when Mike Howe came back, and their a couple of their latest albums are really good as well. And I'm trying to think. He sang on, I think, an album called Blessing in Disguise. Is that the name of the album?
Yeah, he did.
It has a silver cover on it, I want to say.
This guy.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a great album because I think they do a song about the Titanic on there, don't they?
I don't know, but they've got Big Healer on here, which is a cover of the is that a Sensational Alex Harvey song?
Okay. I also love their album, The Dark. The Dark is just a killer record because that's got Ton of Bricks on it.
Oh, that's, to me, this is the classic album. I mean, their debut is great, but their second album, this one here, this is classic. You're right, with ton of Bricks on it, and Start the Fire, the second track on here. It's just like a 1-2 punch.
It's so difficult. Like, I mean, some days it's like that position, that 8th position or whatever we don't want to call it. It's like, some days I might want to put Death Angel there. Some days Metal Church. So it's sort of interchangeable. But you can't take out Testament,
right,
Overkill, or Exodus. And I want to talk about Overkill for a second here. The two stalwarts of that band, Bobby Blitz on vocals, Dee Dee Verney on bass. Now I want to show you my favorite Overkill album. I happen to have it on vinyl. Okay. It's I Hear Black.
I'm surprised you say that.
Now here's why. I mean, this album.
I mean, they were still thrash, but that was early 90s, like 93.
Yeah, this was Overkill's answer to the Black album, and I really feel like that's what the pun is. I Hear Black. I think it was their answer to Metallica's Black album.
I always saw this album as that, but not really their answer because it came out around the same time, 1991.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to think.
Scope is the polished version of Overkill. But then that would certainly be an answer to it after having them.
What's cool is they sort of they incorporated a groove, they incorporated sort of a grunge sound. There's even like some kind of doomy Sabbathy type stuff on here as well. So I think it's an interesting album. I kind of like what Bobby was doing with his vocals. You know, he wasn't screaming as much. He started to almost sing a little bit more. So I don't know. It's always kind of been an album that I've gone to. But what I wanted to say about Overkill, dude, they have 20 records. 20, at least 20 records. I counted them on Wikipedia, and I think it was 20, plus a whole bunch of live out. I mean, these guys have been in the game for a long time.
Yeah, they've never stopped. They've never broken up. They don't take long in between records.
No.
And I think that's one of the things that has kept their name sort of in the spotlight on it is that's a fantastic new album.
And the Grinding Wheel.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes to show you these bands like Overkill, they're getting heavier and they're getting better.
Yeah, as they go on, they've lost nothing. No. That's one of the reasons why I say that, they've got to be in that top list. They, from when they started, they've continued, they've never stopped. Their output has continued. And so you mentioned the two main guys, Bobby Ellisworth and Dee Dee Verney, but a special shout out to Dee Dee Verney, the main songwriter of the group. He's a bass player, but also guitar, plays guitar and everything. Really the band runner, the person who really, leads the band, comes from him. And that's not a real common thing that it's usually from the bass player. Certainly, Iron Maiden and Steve Harris, and he's a bass player and so forth. And there's a few of those, but I've always been really amazed at what Dee Dee Verney can do.
And this is kind of a side note too. What I like about this genre of music, especially, I think these bands have a lot of pride in what they do. Proud of the cities they come from. They know who they are. Overkill knows they're a thrash band.
Right.
They're apologizing for that. They know their place in music.
Yeah.
They just do what they do, but they're proud of it. And they know the heritage that they're carrying on. I think that's what's really cool. Like, you don't really get that with a lot of genres of music. I think thrash is really sort of like a family.
Right.
And you either like it or you don't. And if you like it and you're in the family, then everybody accepts you in it.
Well, when, the late 80s, early 90s and the glam metal, the hair bands, that sort of stuff, and grunge comes around, And a lot of those bands tried to change their sound and become grunge.
Right.
But you didn't hear thrash bands doing that. Thrash bands stayed. Now,
Yeah.
they may have incorporated some of the new sounds, certainly. How can you not?
Right.
Things that are going on around you. But I don't know of any thrash bands, at least any of the major ones, that tried to make the grunge album. And we can argue that against, Metallica and what they did for Load and Reload and
Right.
becoming more commercial and that sort of stuff, certainly. But thrash stayed thrash.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, this Overkill album, they definitely incorporated some grunge elements into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of Overkill, or another Overkill album. And I'm drawing a blank on it, but they sort of, like I said, they sort of got doomy in certain spots, kind of incorporated a little bit more of a groove. So, but like you were saying, they didn't really lose that edge.
Mm-hmm.
It just sort of started to take some elements from grunge and incorporate it into their sound. And they went full on grunge,
right?
Like what they did with Slang.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And Bobby's singing, he still sounds as amazing. And anyone who knows Overkill and knows the sound of his vocals, I mean, I'm still amazed that he can sing that way after all this time.
I would love to see them live. I mean, they're an amazing band. They are definitely becoming one of my favorite thrash bands. And because I wasn't into them as a kid, as a kid, I was into the big four. Like I listened to, Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer. Those are the guys I listened to.
Right.
And then I started to kind of branch out and go, oh, wow, there's like Testament and Overkill and Exodus. But, there's my segue into Exodus because the album that I remember as a kid, and this is my favorite. I'm going to be interested here, Brendan, to see what your favorite Exodus album is.
You ready?
And get it ready to show because I have a favorite here. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go 3, 2, 1 and show it. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right. I was hoping it was going to be Fabulous Disaster. I have that on CD as well.
Yeah.
This is my favorite Exodus album. This is the album I grew up on as a kid. I remember, I love the song Fabulous Disaster. This had Toxic Waltz on it.
Yeah.
A version of Lowrider on here. I don't know. It's always just been my favorite Exodus album. Yeah,
the song Lowrider is the one that always bugged me about that album.
Really?
I'd probably rank it a heck of a lot higher if it didn't have that on there. But Impact is Imminent is another one
too.
Yeah, that I really like by them. And then of course, right?
And Bonded by Blood.
Right. And you can't go wrong with Bonded by Blood. So I mean,
now the original cover, didn't it have the Siamese twins or whatever on it?
Yes. Yeah. We've got the non-original part. Probably find that on vinyl though.
I probably need to get that on vinyl. Exodus is just great, and I know that they are still recording as well, and Gary Holt on guitar. Obviously, he played in Slayer too, so he took over when Jeff Hanneman got ill, and unfortunately, Jeff Hanneman passed away. But Gary Holt sort of kind of carried that on, and that was cool because that was an example of the Thrash family sort of backing each other up. It's like, hey, one of our brothers is gone. Can you step in? And Gary Holt, he knew all the riffs, came in and almost like brought new life to them. And anybody, I'm not talking about the big four, but Repentless, Slayer's latest record and last record, unfortunately, is one of their best.
I completely agree with that. And Paul Bustuff, their drummer, played with Exodus. So, and you actually had, it was half Exodus and half Slayer in there. And then of course, we can't forget that Kirk Hammett came from Exodus.
Right.
So, interesting time with a number of these groups that we're talking about here.
A lot of cross.
To the big four. So with Metal Church, we didn't mention it, but John Marshall, who was their guitar player from 86 to 96 for 10 years, was the guitar tech for Metallica who stepped in twice when James Hetfield hurt himself. Once when he broke his wrist, skateboarding accident, and the other time when he got burned by the pyro. Right. Yep. So, John Marshall stepped in and did that. And he was doing the guitar tech thing in between, while he's with Metal Church, and a lot of cool connections that way. But we want to jump back to Exodus.
Yeah.
So who's your favorite vocalist out of them? Do you prefer Paul Bailoff or Steve?
I'm going with Steve Souza.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
I like Steve Souza. And again, because he sings on this album. But he came back for that other really thrash album. I want to say early 2000s.
Paul Bailoff. Yeah, he did a live album.
But didn't Steve Souza come back and do something with them as well? Yeah.
Yeah, after Paul Bailoff died,
Yeah.
he returned, but he's back with them. And so all the current Exodus stuff, Rob Dukes was a new singer at the time, right before all that and or right after that. I can't recall. But
I always get confused with the lineage and the years of these singers for Exodus because I feel like it was like,
yeah, there was a number of them there.
And I think Anne Murray sang for one of them as well. So,
yeah, so the thing was, they bring Paul Bailoff back and he's with them, and then he's out and or he dies at that point, and then immediately Steve Souza steps in, takes over for him. So it was a matter of, wait, it's not the original singer, but it is an original singer. It's just the other one. And it got a little confusing for a while there, but I always preferred him. They've actually got Lee Altus as a guitar player right now, and he comes from Heathen. I don't know if you ever listened to them back in the day, a really great thrash band. So lead guitarist for them now, he's stepped in and he's playing. So a lot of cool members coming through the ranks. And you mentioned about it being a family, the thrash family, and there's a lot of that goes on where these guys move between each other. Move over, segue to Forbidden, who you've got the record there, Twisted into Form in the background. I've got a CD of it, and cool thing with the slipcase is you slide it off, the art goes with it, kind of a thing. Oh, cool. So that's awesome. Yeah,
I have it on CD, but mine doesn't do that. This is the Indies yellow limited vinyl.
Is that a reissue of it?
Yeah, this is it's limited to 300 copies.
Nice. Record store day or just
300 worldwide? No, it says here it's an indie store exclusive. So it wasn't a record store day thing. It was just something that was released to independent record stores, and it happens to be on yellow vinyl. I love that old Combat label though.
Oh, I do too. I love when these record labels bring those back and don't use the modern.
But this is a great album. Like I was spinning it the other day. I'm like, holy crap. I mean, it's just really, really just it's technical thrash.
Yeah. Yes. True.
Almost. It's progressive almost in a way as well.
So, but Forbidden had Rob Flynn on guitars with them. So he goes on to Machine Head, right? Yeah. And then Paul Bostaph is in there on drums, of course, and he goes on to Exodus and Slayer, and he's played with a number of different bands. He's been all over the place. And then they've had members of Testament in their lineup, or guys, I should say, that went on to play with Testament, kind of a thing. So these bands, they're interchangeable in that regard and move from one to the other, kind of a thing, which I think keeps it really interesting, bringing those different flavors.
Oh, definitely. And I almost feel like it's like, when these guys were younger or whatever, I don't know how much of a family it was when they were younger, because you're almost like competing against each other. Like, I want to be faster. I want to be harder. I want to be heavier. But as the years progress, I bet you some of these guys who were like, I wonder what it would have been like to be in Testament. Then they suddenly have a chance to be in Testament.
Right.
So it was sort of probably like, fulfilling, like, sort of not dreams, but fulfilling like musical fantasies of being in another band. What would that be like?
Well, I think there's definitely a camaraderie. And yeah, of course there would be a competition amongst them, for who's achieving what and how fast someone's playing. I mean, Megadeth alone, that was the whole thing for Dave Mustaine, was to play faster and heavier than Metallica was, kind of a thing. And there were a lot of bands that did that said, we like thrash, but we want to be heavier, kind of a thing, or we want to be this, or we want to be that. And but I think like with a lot of these, though, after the movements are kind of over and it sort of settles down, who's remaining, then it becomes a big brotherhood. We're all in.
Yeah, because they realize that this is their meat and potatoes. This is their livelihood. So, hey, we got to keep this music going.
And so I think that's what allows a lot of these guys to then say, oh, hey, yeah, I liked them back in the day, kind of thing. I wonder what it'd be like. And there's a lead guitar position open. Let me try out for it, kind of thing.
Exactly. One band we haven't talked about yet, and we need to talk about, is Testament.
Yes.
And I can't think of a more recognizable vocalist than Chuck Billy. And what a cool name, like to have two first names as your name.
Right.
Chuck Billy. Like I want to change my name to like Chris Henry or something. It's just Chuck Billy. And he's so cool. He's like this big guy.
Right.
He was tinier when he was younger, but he's this big guy now. Yeah. Like he's got the vocal power still, and he just commands the stage. And then you've got Alex Skolnick on guitar. Just a virtuoso of guitar.
Right. Just amazing, I mean, he's classically trained, with a progressive jazz style to him, and he incorporates all that in. And that's actually where what we haven't talked on or hit on yet is the sort of the sound of these things. And one of the reasons that I said, you've got the technical thrash, and you've got straight thrash, almost hardcore thrash kind of thing. You've got bands like Testament that have beautiful, intricate interlude pieces before the thrash or in the middle of it, kind of a thing. Yeah. They really pushed the limits, I think, of what thrash could be and broadened it in that sense. It wasn't just, heavy, repetitive thrash the whole way through kind of a thing. There was a lot of peaks and valleys in what they did. I always found it far more interesting than a lot of other bands of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at their albums. I mean, The Legacy, New World, or The New Order, very similar in style. But then you get Practice What You Preach was sort of like their Injustice for All. That same sort of sound. Even the drums sound very similar to Injustice for All. Then you've got The Ritual, which of course was slowed down, and you've got some more ballady.
Yeah, this is their answer to the Black Album.
Yeah, it's a great record though.
I love it.
This record is I feel like a lot of the songs are just very similar in style. I feel like there should have just been a couple more fast songs. I have nothing against slower tunes. I just feel like a lot of them I can't really tell the difference between the songs. It's a great album though.
Yeah. Well, it's got Return to Serenity on it, which is, kind of became like their Nothing Else Matters at the time. A lot of these metal bands and thrash bands were releasing their quote ballad, kind of a thing. But I think they did it so much better than Metallica did. That song, and it got tons of radio play and opened up a whole bunch of people to it. Of course, the follow-up album after this was one of the heaviest things they ever did, Low, and Dog Face Gods. So it's kind of interesting how they went.
Didn't they have an album called Demonic too, I want to say?
Demonic Refusal came after that. I think it was actually the album right after Low, which is fantastic. But you're right, that got even heavier. For a couple albums right after Low, they were brutal.
Well, he was doing like a death growl. He wasn't singing anymore.
Yeah, he went through that. And that's one of the only times that I've really enjoyed that style of singing is from Chuck Billy. And in most cases, I'm not a death metal fan. I don't get into, what they call the Cookie Monster vocal kind of thing. Right. But he did it really well. He's kind of pulled back from it on the last couple albums. He'll do a couple songs in that style. Right. But really great.
And an underrated album by them. This gets crapped on a lot, but I love Souls of Black.
I do too.
I love the title track. I love how Chuck Billy says the word black. He says block. It's just, it's like heavy. And I just love his vocal side. And this album, I think reading about it, I think it was rushed to be put out. I think they had to finish it quickly.
That's what they say. Yeah. The album was recorded and released too quickly and it didn't get the proper mix and that kind of stuff. And maybe they don't like it. I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah. And what I find interesting, Atlantic Records, the label they were on, did put out a greatest hits for Testament or a best of for Testament. Right. And there's something from every one of their albums from the Atlantic Records releases except Souls of Black. But the album art on the cover of the best of Testament is from Souls of Black.
You're right. Yeah. I now you say that I remember having that. Yeah. That's strange.
Yeah. And it bums me out because they put a live song on there when they could have taken that off and at least put one track from Souls of Black on there. But who knows if that was Atlantic that did that or whether Testament was just like, no, we don't want anything of that on there.
I don't know. I wouldn't be embarrassed as Testament. I think it's a great album.
I think so too. And I know a lot of fans who actually think that's their best album in their opinion, kind of a thing. I'm a big fan of Practice What You Preach. That's my favorite of theirs.
Yeah, I love Practice What You Preach too. I mean, I think Souls of Black is up there for me though. But
Yeah, and then here we got another one. What do you think of Nuclear Assault?
I like Nuclear Assault. I was never a huge Nuclear Assault
Mhm.
fan. Like I have Game Over on CD.
Yeah,
I have Handle with Care.
right. My favorite
So
though is this one,
something
Something Wicked. Did
I've
you?
never listened to that before.
Oh,
I
this
almost got a yeah. I don't know. There was just always something about them. I like them, but I don't know. I never gravitated to them like I did the other bands.
see, and this is another connection in there, and this is a lot of how I listen to music. And any of the people that follow me on my channel know this, that I'm always in the history of it and the sort of nuts and bolts of things. But Dan Lilliker from Anthrax, bass player.
Okay.
He started this band in 1984.
Right.
So, another connection there. And so I'm listening to Anthrax and he's out of the band. And it's, sort of was, where did he go? And then I followed over because of that. But I've always heard or thought of as Nuclear Assault as, along the lines of Anthrax and that. There's a different sound to it. And I think Nuclear Assault is a bit heavier.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. They're almost like a heavier Anthrax almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was another one that, was in there for me. So I don't know. I mean, we've talked about 8 different, thrash bands here. And we agree definitely on Testament, Exodus, and Overkill. Who would you put in as the 4th one out of these others that we've talked about in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It has to be Testament, Overkill, and Exodus. I don't know. I mean, like I said Death Angel at first.
Yep. There's actually one we didn't talk about yet. That was the quote 8 that I'm saying. But Flotsam and Jetsam, 1981. And of course, they've got the connection through Jason Newsted. Plays on the debut album. But their vocalist, Eric, and he goes by AK a lot. I think is fantastic. And those first few albums are amazing. But where's my stack of their stuff? Here's the debut. And I have sort of it's that answer to the Black Album, kind of thing, was their album Quattro. And this one here had Swatting at Flies, which was a pretty big hit at the time. Kind of thing. I got lucky and met all these guys in an in-store appearance back then. But
awesome.
I like Flotsam and Jetsam, and that was another band that I was weighing in as maybe could be the 4th one of the next 4.
This is a great album. I think unfortunately it was almost like they were just looked at as like, that's Jason Newsted's other band. You know what I mean? It was, even though like Jason Newsted doesn't play on this record, it was sort of like, oh, that's the band that Jason Newsted came from.
It both brought them a lot of notoriety, but at the same time, it made them dismissive. Because you're right, a lot of people, it was like, where did he come from? He came from Flotsam and Jetsam. And then other people are just like, oh, that's the band he used to be in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that they've kind of ridden that wave, twofold there on that.
Well, here's another band we haven't mentioned too. And people forget that they were a thrash band, but Voivod. Voivod's first few albums were thrash. Now, I would consider them, if this is a genre, I would consider it garage thrash. It was just like ugly thrash.
Thrash. Yeah.
Like their album Roar and War and Pain.
Yeah.
Even like Killing Technology. That was thrash stuff before they did like Nothing Face and they got more proggy.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't put them in this list, but I'm just saying that were a thrash band.
Right. I agree with you. I wouldn't necessarily put them in this list, but they are definitely worthy of a mention here for definitely their technical quality of and how they morphed through. Because I mean, they eventually got to a place where they were mixing industrial stuff into it later on. Eric Forst, I think was his name, when that vocalist came in for a while.
For Negatron and Phobos. Yeah.
So definitely. So I don't know. Out of all,
what? I'm going to say Metal Church. I'm saying Metal Church.
Yeah, I would say either Metal Church or Nuclear Assault. But out of the quality of albums and Mike Howe, David Wayne, 2 amazing vocalists, I would put Metal Church in there as the top 4. So I think we've got our next 4 of thrash here. Testament, Exodus, Overkill, and Metal Church. And I'm certainly,
because I think the thing is, if you put any of those albums on after one another, you're going to hear similarities. They all fit together. I feel like Nuclear Assault is just a little bit out there this way, and then Voivod is not even on the thing, and Forbidden is there, but they're a little different. So I think the 4 that we picked sort of gel together.
I would agree with you, and I think they're all of the same, sort of stature and position, that as where they started from and that sort of stuff, that I think makes them a quality, sort of package or pair of these 4.
Right.
So now, just as a side thing here, as we're wrapping up, if you had to remove one of the big 4 bands and replace it with one of these bands that we've talked about, if one of the, Testament, the Overkill, Exodus, even Metal Church, got to take their place as part of the big 4, who would you step down?
Well, no questions, I would take out Anthrax. And again, I love Anthrax. State of Euphoria is a killer record. I see it behind you.
Yeah.
And I mean, Persistence of Time and Among the Living, and I mean, they're
definitely no slight to them at all. Absolutely
no. But I have to take them out just because I feel like they were different than Slayer, Metallica, and Megadeth. There was sort of like a jokiness to them with their Bermuda shorts and the rapping, and nothing against them. They had their own style, which was cool.
Right.
But if I had to take a band out, I'd take Anthrax out. And out of the 4 that we mentioned, that's a tougher question. It would be between Testament and Overkill.
Yeah, I would go Overkill on this. Testament's
I think I'd probably have to go with Overkill too.
More technical, and I would say, okay, that if you did Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Testament, it would all be the same. But if we were looking at a band that was, in their own right, a standout band kind of a thing, like these other 3 are, I'd have to go with Overkill. And
I think I'd have to join you on that in that party, because Overkill, I mean, just even the sheer fact of they've stuck to their guns all these years, and they just keep doing what Overkill does, and they don't care.
Right. And that's my biggest thing, is that they've stayed true to themselves the whole time. Yeah. They've just waved the flag of thrash all the way through, kind of a thing. So that, I would definitely vote on that. And I just wanted to also quickly, so if we opened it up to an international bands, because we've been keeping with all US bands, and that's what the big 4 are. For me, I'd have to bring in and talk about Sepultura.
Okay, yeah.
I'd have to mention Sepultura from Brazil, and certainly their album Arise, Dead Embryonic Cells. And of course, we know what they were, doing with Roots and how they're branching out and so forth there. But yeah, if we were going to talk about or allow international bands, then I would definitely bring them into this.
Well, listen, I love this question, Brendan, because that gets me to show off my Kreator box set.
Oh yeah, that just came out, right?
Yeah, Under the Guillotine. This is their first 6 records, and it's got a lot of other goodies. I'm not going to show you everything in it, but
you guys, I'll put a link to Chris's video. He's done an unboxing for this, and I'll put it in the link below so you can check it out to more detail.
It's literally their first 6 records, and it's all on colored vinyl. Each one has its own.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, so they're beautiful records. I love Kreator. Milla is a great guitarist, a great vocalist. I mean, Flag of Hate is like their flagship tune, unintended, but I love the title track, Pleasure to Kill, off this album. If anybody wants to hear thrash, but even heavier, listen to the song Pleasure to Kill. I mean, that's what Kreator did. That's what these German bands did. They did what Slayer, Metallica, and Anthrax were doing, and they just took it a notch up. It was heavier.
I agree. I agree completely. And Kreator is definitely worth exploring. If anyone out there isn't aware of them, definitely check them out. And on that same tone, I would say there's a lot of new modern bands, modern thrash. And I think it's even running under the title of the new wave of thrash kind of a thing. And I'm sporting a Municipal Waste shirt here. But I'd highly recommend Slime and Punishment. So for you guys that love old school thrash, but you want something new, I highly recommend this band here. They're absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm showing The Last Rager, which was an EP, I love Municipal Waste.
Great. Yeah, Wave of Death is great.
Now I need a Municipal Waste t-shirt.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm going to show Havoc, and this is their latest
Oh, yeah.
album. It's just simply entitled 5. And, you know, like you were saying, Brendan, these guys, I mean, I would say they're the new wave of thrash. I mean, they're basically taking what those bands did in the 80s.
Right.
And they're putting a new spin on it.
They're keeping it alive, too. They're waving the flag for it, which I think is great. And they're bringing a lot of young kids into this.
Exactly. And it's almost like, you know, it's like they're rediscovering what thrash is. Just talking about vinyl and stuff. This was on like a sort of a see-through sea glass.
That's very nice.
So, very cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, another band that comes to mind is a band called Hatchet. And I saw Hatchet open for Metal Church. They're another great band. If you want modern thrash, check out Hatchet as well. They're another great band.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones out there, and that's kind of the cool thing is that we've still got the big four. We've still got the next four that we just talked about. We have a bunch of these other bands that we've been going through. So thrash is still alive and well going on out there. And you've got, you know, a new wave of thrash that's happening. These bands, some of these bands have been around for 10 years or longer doing this sort of thing. And more and more, it's still happening. So, I mean, all these people that thought, you know, thrash was this, you know, one-time thing that wasn't going to carry on and so forth, you know, look at it now, 40 years later, right? They always say that, you know, something's not a style of music until it's been around at least 25 years. And it's like, well, thrash has certainly done that. So, you know, kudos to them.
Definitely.
All right, and there we go. We've got our, you know, beyond the big four and what we think could potentially be the next four of thrash. And we've covered a lot of different topics here. I hope you guys all enjoyed this. As I said, definitely check out the links in the description below for some other videos that Chris and I have done, as well as I'll put a link to his channel and a link to the Kreator box set that he was just showing us there. So you guys can check all that out and certainly check back as we do more videos of this. We are the CD and Vinyl guys. We hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you all real soon, everyone.
Bye, guys.